Hi there, it's Louise with you of Tana's Craft Mama, and today I'd like to share a scrapbook layout process video created for the Off the Rails Scrapbooking May Challenge Board. Now I've created you a layout that I'm titling Today, and it's inspired by our mood board this month with the requirement to use feathers. So in my tutorial for you today, I'm going to show you a couple of techniques, and I'm going to focus on how to create that really cool arrow looking feather. So the first thing I'm going to do is use one of these Kaiser Resist 3x4 cards, and what I'm going to do is use the Kaiser mist on it first of all with some water sprays just to give a really nice watercolor kind of background, and then I'm going to add some splatters. Now at the moment it doesn't really look like much is going on, but certainly you'll see as the layout progresses it does develop, and we're going to change it up a little bit. So I'm starting with a 12x12 background paper, and this is from the Heidi Swap Magnolia Jane paper pad, and I really love the pattern that this page has, so that's what I've decided to use. It's light enough that it gives the layout a light bright feel, but it's still got pattern and texture. Now I've also taken a couple of papers from my 6x6 paper pad, and they coordinate with that sort of beautiful turquoise colour that we've got going on in the mood board. So that's where my inspiration came from. Now the other thing I've done is I've included that feather paper on the 6x6 that's going to appear in my cluster as well. So certainly a few little elements here that I can take from that mood board to inspire you. Now I'm looking at my cluster as I'm developing it here, and it was a little bit plain. I wanted to have sort of a few little more pops of colour coming through there as well. So I've raided my stash for some older papers that were just sort of sitting around and were unused leftovers, if you will, and I'm going to include those in my cluster to help build that interest in the background. Now it's really easy to build layers of cluster. Just cut random pieces, take some scraps, lay them in and out behind each other. For some parts of this you'll see I'm doing adhesive, and some I'm using the staples, so it really just does depend on where it's falling. And I'm particularly fond of just tearing my layers in half, so anything that's going to be behind the photo and not actually seen, you can just tear, because there's really no reason why. No one's going to see it, so it doesn't have to be particularly neat or tidy. So I mean, do it at your own preference, but for me that's how I like to build my layers. Now with my little 3x4 card down the bottom there, I have also created a little cluster with that as well. So that's sort of something that I didn't start out with that idea in mind, but certainly as the page progressed, that's how it happened. Now earlier in the video I actually added a coat of gel medium to that background paper, just so that I would have a little bit of time to work with this mist that I'm applying. So I wanted sort of a watercolor type background, and at the moment it looks just really messy and untidy, but you can see sort of as I've sponged some of it away and used the heat gun to move some of that around, you lose that kind of really dark, intense background color. So I have gone ahead and just moved around that color as I was happy with it, added water, sponged some of it off, used the heat gun, dried, added a little bit more, and really what I wanted was those stripes that are falling down from beneath that cluster, and just a little bit of that color to be peeking out behind the cluster. So this is what I mean about getting the 3x4 watercolor card to pop. So I've just traced around that wording in ordinary old black pen, and that's going to help that pop off the page. So moving on to our feather element, you can see that I've already cut one of these, and I like to cut it into something so that you don't end up with feathers everywhere. But basically you're just cutting your feather on a straight line towards the spine, and then you go through and just pull off those bits that you've cut. And the feather direction actually does the rest for itself. So it's really quick and easy and a great way to get those sort of arrow looking feathers. Now you can make this as neat or as messy as you like, and you could use a couple of these, you could use just one, but if you're wanting a way to include feathers in your layout in something slightly different, this is a great way to do it. So certainly keep in mind different ways to use your feathers, and don't be afraid to cut them and have a little play with some of those textures. Now, to give my page just a little bit more dimension again, I'm just going to ink around not only the outside but also the cluster as well. So that's going to help just lift everything off that sort of busy background that we've got going there. Some of the cluster I'm also mounting up on some card as well, so that's going to just again give that dimension. Now I'm sort of not a straight line scrapper. I tend to keep my stuff either sideways or messy or on an angle, and that's just a personal preference. There's no right or wrong. Do whatever you're comfortable with, and you'll end up with a page that you're happy to have in your album. You'll also notice I've done a little bit of background stamping there. It doesn't show up too much on the final layout, but I think it just adds that little bit extra, helps break up that busy turquoise colour in the background. Now the final stages of putting this layout together are going to involve gluing down some of the feathers, gluing on my title. I'm going to add some journaling as well, sticking down the final elements. I've used just a little background sticker here. It just needed something extra, and I'm not quite sure if it really, adding this really improved anything like I wanted it to, but certainly it's done, and it's part of the layout now. And they say live and learn, so learn from your mistakes. Not that this is a mistake, but just to actually include it in the page. I don't think it really needed it in hindsight. So I've got a couple little things that I'm going to add here. I'm going to add my journaling title, a little sticker as well, and that's just finishing touches of this layout, ensuring that it's telling the story and keeping the memory. Now, just as a little side note, I want to mention to you about creating collages. So the photo that I've used is a collage that I've created with Picasa, which is a photo editing software, which is free. You can download it and just create a collage. I find it's an easy way to combine lots of photos and then print them as a single page. So that for me is a really good way to record that memory. The final touches on this layout are just a couple of little black splatters here and there just to bring that darker element through, and this page is complete. So I hope you enjoyed that little feather tutorial and that process video from me, and you'll get to play along with our challenge this month. Thanks for watching.